The creaking door opened slowly, revealing only pitch-black darkness beyond. Jennifer took a hesitant step inside the room, her pulse quickening. Something felt very wrong in there. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she gasped. Hanging from the ceiling were dead bodies, grotesquely twisted and mutilated. Their glassy eyes seemed to stare accusingly at her. A movement in the corner of the room made Jennifer spin around. A hideous creature emerged from the shadows, approaching her steadily. It had ragged claws and rotting, leathery skin stretched taut over its bone-thin frame. A low hiss escaped its fanged jaws. Jennifer turned to run but rammed into something solid. She looked up slowly to see another monstrous figure blocking her exit, its midnight black eyes fixed on her. Trapped between the two creepy horrors, Jennifer began to scream. The creatures closed in on her, their monstrous chuckles echoing off the walls. Jennifer screamed and screamed until she thought her lungs would burst. Just as scabby claw hands reached for her, Jennifer woke up with a start, sweat drenching her pajamas. She breathed a sigh of relief. It had only been a nightmare. Or had it? An unpleasant sensation on her arm made her blood turn to ice. There, imprinted on her skin, were 3 long scratches. Jennifer stared in horror at the fresh scratches on her arm. It couldn't have been a dream, those wounds were all too real. But that would mean the monstrous creatures were real too. Suddenly, Jennifer heard a noise from within the dark room, a low hiss followed by maniacal chuckling. The creatures were still in there, waiting for her. Frantically, Jennifer locked her bedroom door and pushed a chair against it. She grabbed her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. She was trapped, alone with those unspeakable horrors. As the sun rose, Jennifer dozed fitfully in her chair. When she awoke, the house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Slowly, hesitantly, she crept out of her room. The long shadows of dusk filled the empty hall. Suddenly, Jennifer saw movement out of the corner of her eye. She wheeled around to see a hideous creature scuttle across the ceiling towards her on deformed limbs. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. More creatures emerged from the shadows, slavering jaws emitting chilling hisses. Jennifer backed away in mute horror, but they closed in, grabbing her arms, digging razor-sharp claws into her flesh. As the creatures dragged her kicking and screaming into the dark room, the door slammed shut behind them. Jennifer's blood-curdling screams were abruptly cut off, leaving an ominous silence. The creature's work was done. The dark room had a new victim. The creatures dragged Jennifer deep into the dark room, past the hanging corpses and mangled bodies strewn across the floor. They threw her onto a filthy cot in the furthest corner and surrounded her, watching with their horrible, soulless eyes. Jennifer trembled uncontrollably, sobbing as the reality of her hopeless situation sank in. The creatures cackled and hissed, excited by her terror. One leaned close, breathing its foul breath in her face. Another ran a ragged claw across her cheek, drawing blood. The hours dragged on as Jennifer was subjected to the creatures' cruel torments. They took turns slashing and biting her, drawing out her suffering for their sadistic pleasure. Jennifer's pained screams just made them torture her more. Eventually, Jennifer's voice grew hoarse from screaming. Blood soaked the cot and pooled on the floor. The creatures, bored with their broken toy, disappeared back into the darkness. Jennifer lay still, her mangled body barely clinging to life. As her vision began to fade, a small glimmer of light caught her eye. It grew larger, reaching out to her through the dark room's gloom. Jennifer's final thought, as the light swallowed her up, was of the creatures left behind to inflict their cruelty on other lost souls. She prayed that none would have to endure what she had. Then Jennifer was bathed in light, and all pain and horror fell away. But the memory of the dark room and its bitter harvest of suffering remained, a warning for those who would give in to evil without hope of redemption. Jennifer's mangled body lay motionless on the blood-soaked cot. The creatures had grown bored of torturing her and slipped back into the shadows. Jennifer teetered on the edge of death, her faint consciousness fading fast. Then she saw it, a small glimmer of light, beckoning to her from the doorway of the dark room. It was her only chance at escape. Summoning her last reserves of strength, Jennifer crawled agonizingly towards the light. The creatures stirred, sensing her attempt at flight. They emerged from the gloom, moving to block Jennifer's path. Jennifer dragged herself forward inch by bloody inch, clawing desperately at the floor. The creatures closed in, raking their claws across her flesh, trying to pull her back into the darkness. As Jennifer reached the door, one of the creatures sunk its fangs deep into her leg. She screamed, a high keening sound, and struck out blindly. Her hand connected with flesh, and the creature fell back with an unearthly howl. Jennifer stumbled out of the dark room, into the light. But it was too late. The creature's venom coursed through her veins, twisting her body in agony. As the light faded from her eyes, Jennifer's last thought was one of bitter triumph. Though she had not escaped, she had defeated the creatures at their own game. Jennifer's mangled body was found the next morning, dead on the threshold between light and dark. The dark room's harvest was complete.